afternoon, everyone, once again. Honorable dignitaries, respected speakers, distinguished guests, and dear participants. With great pleasure, I welcome you all to the seminar titled Open Education, the Present and the Future. The seminar shall serve as a platform for academicians and experts to share their insights on the evolving landscape of open education and its potential to shape the future of learning. The seminar will be chaired by Dr. Gracious James, the Pro-Vice Chancellor in charge of Srinarayana Guru Open University. To commence, I cordially invite Dr. Sunitha AP, our Dynamic Registrar of Srinarayana Guru Open University, to deliver the welcome note. Dr. Sunitha.
It's my great pleasure and privilege to be here to extend our great regards and welcome to our honorable guests and the listeners attending the program. Open education, the aim of open education is mainly inclusiveness, access to education, quality of education, affordability, student success, collaboration, international partnership, and learn while one is earning, which can in turn eradicate the unemployability issues and increase the GDP of the country. Srinarayana Guru Open University, within a short span of 4 years, is on such a mission, which presently supports 53,000 learners of diverse spectra. Firstly, I am entering into my obligation. With great regards, I would like to welcome Professor Uma Kanchilal, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University. We can't pass our duty without mentioning her profound profile. She was acting as PVC and presently Vice Chancellor of the university. She is behind lot of innovative missions of our country. She was a professor in the Faculty of Library and Information Science, Director of the Center of Online Education, University Librarian, Director of the School of Social Sciences, Director of Advanced Center of Informatics and Innovative Learning, Director of Inter-University Consortium and Technology Enabled Flexible Education, and she was behind Swayam and Swayam Prabha education missions, and she is the principal investigator of IGNOU for National Virtual Library of India project of the Ministry of Culture. She is also the coordinator, IGNOU Project Management Unit under the Project Management Unit Head of NME ICT Phase 3 scheme of MOE. And Professor Kanchilal's international assignments include consultancy of the Commonwealth Education Media Center for Asia, and she has been recognized with several fellowships and awards, including being a Fulbright Scholar at the University of Illinois Urbana campaign, receiving at the Manhattan Award for Education, E-Education, and Australia and India Council Grant and Danida Fellowship. National Mission on Education through ICT was her mission. EPG Padashala being a member of the project review and supervisory group for National Digital Library of India, and much more to read and much more to see. And with great regards, we welcome you, ma'am, to this Open Education mission. Next, with great regards, I would like to welcome Professor N.V. Varghese, sir, previous Vice Chancellor of National University of Educational Planning and Administration, New Delhi. He was the founding director of the Center of Policy Research in Higher Education, New Delhi, head of governance and management in education at the International Institute of Educational Planning, Paris. He was working in Paris from 2006 to 2013, about 17 years. He was responsible for managing an Asian regional network, the Asian Network of Training and Research Institutions in Educational Planning. He was in charge of activities associated with educational planning at the federal and decentralized levels in India. He has been member of several international boards and committees and editorial boards of journals. He is also the chief editor of the Journal for Educational Planning and Administration. He has directed several national and international research projects, carried out research projects in several countries of Africa, Latin America, and CIS region, published more than 30 books and research reports. With great honor and regards, we welcome you to our Open Education Mission, sir. Next, George Abraham, sir. Blindness or different ability was not real problem, but the challenge culture that people mindset create. That was the mission behind the Educational Foundation that George Abraham's. This was George Abraham's mission. George Abraham is presently CEO of SCORE Education Foundation. He is a postgraduate in Operation Research and graduate in Mathematics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. He launched the national cricket programs for the blind and established the World Blind Council in 1996. Later, he launched a mobile training program in personality development. Professor George founded SCORE Foundation and launched its flagship project, iWay, in 2003, which is a single-stop knowledge resource for blind and visually impaired people with the object of changing lives through the power of knowledge. George has been conferred with awards, many awards he has got: Sanskriti Award, Rotary Vocational Award, Limca Book of Records People of the Year Award, was elected to Ashoka Fellow Award in 2001. In 1996, he also had the privilege of running with the Olympic torch at Atlantica. With great profile and with great regards, we welcome you to our Open Education Mission, sir. Next is Professor Dr. Bashir Ahmed Shadrack, sir, presently the Director of Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia. A lot to read. Again, Dr. B. Shadrack was worked as CEO, Senior Manager, team member of large international and regional organizations, and he was working in different countries like Manila, UK, Germany, and Asia. He has been experienced from various 40 countries around the globe. He pioneered the programs and innovation express newspapers in India, the British Council India, Open Education Network in UK, Commonwealth of Learning in Canada, and good at raising. That is our important point. He is very good at raising a lot of resources for organizations. He has raised about 20 million US dollars in the last 10 years and more than 15 million in sponsorship. So Open University is looking forward for great collaboration with you. So with great regards, we invite you to our Open Education program. So now it's my duty to welcome all our listeners over here, syndicate members, senators, our professor, VC and all. So thanking you once again. Welcome, gracious sir, to chair the event.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I call upon our chair for this session, Dr. Gracious James, the Pro-Vice Chancellor in charge of Srinarayana Guru Open University, to share a few words. Sir.
Very good afternoon. Respected Professor Uma Kanjilal, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Indira Gandhi National Open University, Professor N.V. Varghese, Honorable former Vice Chancellor of National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, Sri George Abraham, CEO of the SCORE Foundation, Sri Bashir Ahmed Shadrack, Director, Commonwealth Education Media Center for Asia, Dr. Sunitha A.P., Registrar, Dr. Vincent Neto, Head of the Schools, and other distinguished guests, scholars, educators, colleagues, and media friends. I am honored and delighted to be here to address this highly relevant international seminar on open distance learning, the present and the future. I am happy to see the presence of many eminent personalities here, including the Honorable Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, the largest university of Asia. We are gathered here to deliberate on a topic of immense relevance, one that stands at the confluence of education, technology, and equity. Open distance learning is becoming increasingly popular in today's digital age, and there are several reasons why it is considered the future of education. The past 4 years have caused so much disruption and change, and this is a good time for us as the open and distance learning community to reflect collectively on how we can be better prepared to face the uncertain future that lies ahead. The demands of the workplace are continuously changing. Learners are expected to be well equipped and advancements that have not even occurred yet. Thus, the universities need to come up with ways that can help learners become more flexible. Today, it is crucial for universities to reconfigure their suite of educational products in the open distance mode according to the needs of the learners. The focus should be on promoting more learner-centric approach and offering programs which can be customized as per the evolving needs of the learners. In the past few decades, education has undergone a paradigm shift. The traditional boundaries of classroom have blurred thanks to the advent of open distance learning. Today, as we discuss the present and the future of ODL, I invite you to reflect on its transformative potential, the challenges it faces, and the immense opportunities it holds for shaping a more inclusive educational landscape. I would say the success of open distance learning system in the higher education scenario of our country is due to its technology acumen, accessibility, and flexibility. Open distance learning has revolutionized the way we perceive education, making it more accessible, flexible, and learner centric. One of the key factors in this transformation could be due to the increased accessibility. ODL has emerged as a lifeline for millions who are unable to access traditional education due to geographic, financial, or personal constraints. Yet another factor is the technological integration in ODL. Many universities are integrating virtual reality and augmented reality into their teaching systems so as to make education more engaging for students. These technologies make it easier for students to comprehend difficult concepts by providing them with a real time practical experience of the same. Nowadays, the remodeling of the printed self learning materials to digital formats has become more prevalent. Here in our university, Srinarayana Guru Open University, we share the self learning materials in flipbook format as a learner friendly approach. Technology enables us to transform the pen paper system to online assignments and examination reforms. As part of these reforms, we have already introduced open book examinations for our PG learners with the help of technology. We are planning to introduce the examination on demand system by integrating the technology using a big data bank of questions. Artificial intelligence has made a great impact in open distance learning. The promise of AI education is already being realized. AI generated videos are as engaging as human videos. The integration of technology has been a game changer. Learning management systems, massive open online courses, and digital classrooms have made education interactive and engaging. Yet another factor is that ODL offers diverse learning opportunities. ODL offers a plethora of different programs tailored to diverse learners' needs, from vocational training to advanced research programs. It supports lifelong learning, equipping individuals with skills required in ever evolving job market. Most importantly, open distance learning responded very positively to global challenges. The COVID 19 pandemic underscored the indispensability of ODL as traditional institutions grappled with closures. Open distance learning ensured continuity in education, providing its resilience in crisis. Looking ahead, open distance learning holds the promise to reshape the education systems globally. Leveraging artificial intelligence, ODL can provide adaptive learning experiences tailored to individual needs, preferences, and progress, making education more effective and learner specific. The future lies in blending the best of both worlds, traditional and distance learning. Hybrid models can combine face to face interactions with the flexibility of online modules to create a holistic educational experience. Here in our university, we have adopted the blended mode of academic delivery. ODL can foster international partnerships, enabling knowledge sharing and cultural exchange. Virtual classrooms can host learners and educators from across the globe, enriching perspectives and experiences. Governments and institutions must create enabling environments for ODL by investing in infrastructure, subsidizing digital tools, and formulating progressive policies. As we stand at this juncture, open distance learning embodies hope, a hope for inclusive education, a hope for bridging the divides, and a hope for empowering individuals. But this hope demands collective action. Educators, policymakers, technologists, and communities must collaborate to address these challenges, innovative solutions, and ensure that ODL fulfills its promise as a beacon of educational equity and excellence. I urge all experts and participants of this seminar to use this platform to exchange ideas, share best practices, and chart a roadmap for the future. Let us work together to transform ODL into a force that not only educates but also empowers, uplifts. Thank you, and I look forward to the enlightening discussions ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gracious, for your insightful observations and for letting the ball roll. We are honored to have Professor Uma Kanjilal, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, with us today to inaugurate this seminar. As our respected registrar had duly mentioned in her welcome note, she is indeed a pioneer in open education with a wealth of experience in both academics and administration. And it is our privilege to invite Professor Kanjilal to inaugurate this seminar. Ma'am, please.
Good afternoon to all. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sri Narayan Guru Open University, Professor Dr. Jagati Raj PP, esteemed dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Gracious J, Pro Vice Chancellor in charge of SGOU, Dr. Sunita AP, Registrar of SGOU, Professor N.V. Burgess, former Vice Chancellor of NIPA, George Abraham, CEO, SCO Foundation, Dr. Bashir Ahmed Sadak, Director, Commonwealth Education Media Center for Asia, Professor Vincent E. Neto, Head of Languages. It's a great pleasure to be part of this major event, and I'm grateful to SGOU for inviting me to be the chief guest of this session. This has not come yet. So basically, the theme of today's session is on open education, the present and the future. Now, I think we have to delve on exactly how things are moving. Already, Professor Gracious has, set the ball rolling. He gave you some background, and he mentioned that I think when we started with the traditional mode, as technologies have been changing, we have been adopting ourselves, and accordingly, we have moved on. And today, we are in a world when we talk about Industry 4.0 or even 5.0 also, where I think AI, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, everything is taking over. So we need to see the significance and how best that can be utilized when we talk about open and distance learning. So I'll start with the look into the generations that we have seen in the 5 generations of open and distance learning. In the first generation, it was correspondence education. Then it moved on to the second generation with multimedia model, because I have been because I joined IGNOU way back in 1989, and I have grown with the system, and I have seen many technologies coming and going. So if you look into, initially we were introduced, first it was actually, when we talk about correspondence education, I think the directorates of distance education, they were running correspondence courses. Delhi University was the first one to do. Only, reading material was posted to the learners. But then, when we had open and distance learning systems coming in the FOOP, actually, where the use of multimedia started. And I remember we used to have studio, in fact, makeshift studio there. Every day we were trained how to present, develop a video, writing scripts for that, and those we were introduced. And initial time it was actually audio video cassettes were developed, and that was distributed to the study centers across the country. This followed with the telelearning. We had EduSat, we had other technologies coming in, teleconferencing was brought in, and some kind of an interactivity was there. Then this was followed by a generation when we had internet-based delivery, but that was more, just having some online courses, but I wouldn't call it online courses. It was more like actually uploading some content there and interaction through email or some other more discussion forum, something like that. Now today in the fifth generation, I think AI has taken over, and interaction and engaging learners is the major thing that is happening. If we relate in case of IGNOU also, when we started way back from 1985 to 80, it was actually, we were laying the foundation of ODL system. As it happens today, IGNOU is the largest university in the world with 3.5 million students on the roads. And you can imagine the kind of readiness that we need when we are actually providing the services to our learners. So that was the stage when we ourselves were understanding what is open and distance learning, and then getting ready with that. This was followed by, I mentioned about the communication technologies and all coming in, and some sort of interactive mode, even satellite-based thing. The EduSat was a very good example that was there. This was followed by 2006 onwards. We had increased reach access, serving the unserved areas. Last mile we were reaching with web and mobile applications. But after 2020, the world changed. I think COVID changed us, and we got into this whole area of virtual learning that is there. A lot of use of social media that happened, and this how over the years the development happened. So if you look into the market world over, that the trends that are happening, we started talking about open educational resources. OER is a very important thing, and why it is important later on I will tell you, because at the national level and also the government is stressing on adapting course materials that are available as OER instead of actually duplicating efforts actually. Then MOOCs came into being. MOOCs were something massive open online courses. You know about Coursera, edX, Udacity. These were the popular ones. 2012 onwards it started. But now I think it has invaded the market, and India is not far behind. And our own platform, India Indigenous Platform, SWAYAM, is doing wonderful. It was not counted earlier. Now it is actually popular world over. Cloud-based services, that's another major thing. When we were talking about providing online services, we were more concerned about having, infrastructure in the institution available. But I think today, if you wish to go in for any kind of an online service, I think cloud-based computing has changed. Even the learning management systems are available, and you can actually use, and that saves money, time, and actually. It's like ready to go kind of a solution that we have. There was mention about, I think we are moving towards virtual reality, virtual worlds. We talk about virtual labs happening, augmented reality being used, and a lot of platforms, open source applications which are available, and in no time you can create such kind of an application or a tool for your students, in fact. And another important thing is the low-cost mobile computing devices coming in, and that brings in the concept of bring your own devices. Actually, earlier concern was, if you talk about online or any kind of technology-enabled services, concern was for setting up labs. But I think with the mobile technology improving, I think that whole concept has changed. So you do not bother about having labs, rather you provide the services, access to to the data, and students anywhere, anytime can access that. That's very important. Another major change that is happening, the digital online learning, it's also changing globally. We have started talking about gamification. Online videos are part and parcel of online programs, but there is a big change in that. Earlier, we were concentrating more on expert talking heads, lecture-based videos, or a screencast that were there. But I think recently, if you look into the SWAYAM guidelines also that has been brought in, it talks about AVGC. What is AVGC? Animations, visual effects, gaming, and comic. That also, if you are generating your e-content, that becomes part and parcel of the content that you will be providing. M-learning and tablets already I mentioned, and this is also going to be, and whatever content you develop, it has to be ready for all kinds of platforms. That is very important. Another concept, because open and distance learning is dependent on the self-learning material, I think we have to redesign the self-learning material as well. So it has to be very interactive. I mean, can we think in terms of developing as Apple Books or Amazon Kindle kind of a book? E-publications is something. And can you also, that SLM, which is only text-based, can we make engaging content embedding the videos, audios, and all kinds of gaming and all in that course material itself. So this is a big change that is coming in. With technology, the landscape also is changing, especially when we talk about open and distance learning. Now the environments, learning environments are outside the institutional structure. Why? I will tell you, because SWAYAM talks about, I'll come to that also, that one can earn credits from any SWAYAM course which is being given by any university. Earn that, make it part and parcel of your degree. So this kind of a flexibility, so deinstitutionalization is happening in a big way, and tomorrow if the National Digital University comes in, you will see that this kind, everyone gets involved in developing courses for National Digital University, where everyone is part and parcel, anyone can offer courses, and students have the flexibility to combine courses from anywhere. So this is something, a big change we may see. So already we have Academic Bank of Credit, constant credit mobilization. Also, we have gazette notifications from UGC, from AICT, which is working well. We are moving more towards informal and self-directed learning. It doesn't now require, I think, trusted teachers. Classroom teaching is going. I think teachers are going to be more of facilitators, motivators, rather than classroom scenario that is there. So I think the concept of faith on the stage is going, it has to be, faculty have to be guided by the side. That's something that one needs to look into. Another collaborative learning, accessing information, working, learning together. This is something that a big change also is coming in. Now I will mention a bit about NEP 2020. If you look into section 24, clearly it talks about use of ICT, and especially if you look into it, talks about digital infrastructure, it talks about online education, it talks about use of SWAYAM, Diksha for the school actually, engaging e-content including games, simulations, augmented reality, virtual reality, virtual labs. This initiative was started by IIT Delhi, taking in all the IITs on board. They have a good number of virtual labs available, but more towards science and technology. I think now we are moving, we have to see there are requirements for the psychology labs, language labs. I think that also how we make them virtual labs, that needs to be looked into. It talks about capacity building of teachers. That's another important area. I think when we move and we start adopting technologies, capacity building is a most important thing. I think since I have grown with the system, I think the importance of capacity building is there. Today, a lot of technologies are there, and if you are not trained hands-on, theoretically talking is one thing. Now, with the ChatGPT and all your AI tools available, I think you have to be adept with that. So this big change needs to be looked into. So basically, ICT interventions, it's improving teaching, learning, and evaluation processes, supporting teacher preparation and professional development, enhancing educational access, and streamlining planning, management, and administration. So, holistic approach using ICT is happening in fact. And if you look into the NEP 2020 section 3.6, it talks about technological interventions. It is talking about which variety of education software will be developed and made available for students and teachers. I think that and NETF, there is already technology forum that has been set up by the Ministry of Education that is working towards that. A lot of tools they are developing. It's housed in AICT and which will be accessible to the teachers. A very good example is the Anuvadini tool, which is the translation tools. Try to have access to that. You can in a jiffy, because I was told that SGU is now offering courses in English, but tomorrow there will be a requirement for Malayalam. So how do you convert them? And it's also providing not just translation of text, speech to speech, which means even your videos can be converted. So have a look into that, the possibilities. So language, there's a lot of focus that is coming and using tools, and especially when we talk about translation tools, it's AI-based translation tools that's going to be used. So it talks about accessibility in the wide range of user community that are there who are in the remote areas. So you have to reach the last mile. So the technology that you adopt has to be appropriate so that we can reach out. So it has to be a blended mode that already was mentioned, and also how we support our Divyang students that needs to be looked into. So e-content, of course, it's actually not going to be centralized. I think all states have to come forward, especially when we talk about teaching in mother tongue. I think language, developing language-based courses, states have to play a very important role. Now I'll just quickly run through the major interventions from the Ministry of Education. This started way back in NPTEL. I'm sure all of you are aware about it. The popularity has grown like anything. So it started as a repository of courses, web courses and video courses way back in 2003, but then they moved over to online programs in fact. And then gradually we had SWAYAM in 2016. This is the India MOOCs I was mentioning, but the numbers in short span, it's mind-boggling. It's actually 13,000 courses have been offered. We have 3,526 unique courses that have been developed. Now imagine, I talked about the flexibility. Now you can ask your students to pick up courses from, if your institution is not able to offer the courses, you can ask your students to pick up courses, and then that can be part and parcel of their credits to earn a degree. So this is something that needs to be looked into. And in fact, if you look into, already 323 universities have adopted this, and this credit transfer is happening. Total number of users, again you can see, it's a great number, 4.62 crores that has happened, and users also the number is there. And also, apart from that, the most, because SWAYAM, why it is different from edX or Coursera is it is institutionalized. It talks about certification, where actually institutions are offering degrees where the even control of examining is so that value is there. So we follow 4-quadrant approach. How much time? And this is the kind of certificate that will be there, control, and that adds value. And the important thing is, in future, these credits that are earned can be and will be credited on the academic bank of credits. So anyone can use it anytime they want. These are the notification. Initially in 2016, this gazette notification from UGC which came, it said that 20% per semester students can take credits from the SWAYAM courses. And this was followed in 2021. Now it talks about taking 40% of the credits actually per semester from the SWAYAM courses and make it part and parcel of the curriculum. So this kind of a credit mobility has been provided in academic bank of credit. I think that's something very important. Everyone needs to be onboarded if we have to build in that kind of a flexibility that we are talking about. We already have gazette notification, and this has been actually followed by ABC, followed by APAR. This is automated permanent academic account registry for students starts from the school level. So all the certificates, credits, all the testimonials that you earn gets, and this is running on DigiLocker, in fact, platform. You can actually all gets collated, and in fact, a huge number has been also added. And whatever we have been asking our students to register on ABC, that also becomes part and parcel of our part. So this is one area one needs to look into. There have been some changes in the SWAYAM guidelines. I will not go into details. Earlier we were talking about 4-quadrant approach. Now it talks about 6 dimensions. And one of the most important dimension is adding vocational and skill-based courses in that. And if you look into that, just move on to that. It talks about adding courses that are coming from the industry. Another important initiative by the Ministry of Education is Swayam Prabha. We have 40 channels, higher education channels in that. In fact, we are running 6 channels, and I would suggest is because we have one channel for state open universities, and I would request AGOU also to be onboarded on that. You can use the platform because that's for all the state open universities. That could be thought of. And this is something that actually provides curriculum-based courses, right? For schooling, for the school education, they have 200 channels available, and multiple languages they are running, in fact. And then we have a competitive channel also for competition preparation for competitive exams. That is Sathi, run by IIT Kanpur. So these are the partners that are there. I'm not going, and these are the platforms through which you can access all the archive. I mean, generally every day we have 4 hours of fresh course content, and this is actually archived, and all the archives you can access through YouTube. In fact, it's available basically for DD Free Dish, and then Dish TV is also providing access. GeoTV you have access. There is a mobile app for that. So this is the platform. I'm not going into deliberate. You have a look into the portal, Swayam Prabha portal. It gives a monthly schedule. You can ask your students to actually have a look, and appropriately they can go in for the courses. Some changes, major changes have been brought in. It has been now made interactive. AI-enabled SMS-based schedule retrieval system has been brought in. WhatsApp services are also integrated. So this is something. One important thing I would like to mention, since IGNOU has 6 Prabha channels, we did an innovative thing. That was from 2022. We started offering every day for our popular programs live classes through Swayam Prabha in regional languages, and our regional centers. Every day experts, counselors are coming, onboarded, and then this is going live every day. And accordingly, we have by now 6,000 hours of course material in 14 languages available. Recently, we added Manipuri. We are going to also add Mizo very soon. Yeah, I'll just. Another concept is coming, spot teachers. That is, it will be again, Swayam Prabha will be available in OTT platform also as an app. Sathi, I was mentioning, it's a platform for preparation of JEE. It started with JEE and NEET preparation, but now it's going to actually focus on all the competitive examination. This is what I wanted to mention, that when we talk about skill-based courses, Swayam Plus has been brought in, and industry has been brought in. So we have paid and free courses available, which can be skill-based courses that we integrate for our curriculum. We can actually pick up from there. So, what is the impact of ODL on diverse populations? I think it's basically designed for working professionals who want to upgrade. So continuous education can be, lifelong learning can be provided, upgrade their skills. In fact, basically meant for women, people living in rural areas, and individuals with disabilities. Significant benefits can be brought in. I think some duplication happened here. Education empowerment fosters socio-economic progress with the communities with ODL systems, in fact, and educational divide promoting is, it addresses the educational divide that is there. I think that's where we can actually meet the last mile. There are a lot of challenges. I think quality is challenged. People talk about this because it's a self-learning mode that the students have to adopt. So some kind of a self-discipline and motivation should be there. So addressing that is a very important thing. A lot of technological barriers are there when we talk about, digital divide and other things. That's something that needs to be looked into. Also, there is a misconception regarding the quality. And then let me tell you that initially it was thought as a second grade thing, but now gradually it's becoming first choice because quality has improved and people have realized that it's not this. It's not just those who don't get access to education, higher education in the institution of higher ranking. Those come to the distance education. That's not true. Now people actually are having this as a first choice as well. So what's going to be the future of ODL in India? I think trends indicate that it will continue gain popularity and adapt to the changing needs of the students. In fact, AI already there was a mention. Advanced technologies that are there, we have to adopt and adapt to that, and also redefine the learning because AI can bring in personalization, customization. That's one important area that needs to be looked at. And we should be using the different platforms are there for collaboration among institutions so that we don't have, reinventing the wheel. The collaboration is the buzzword that we need to look into, in fact. And a lot of government initiatives are coming towards ODL. In fact, when I mentioned about National Digital University, basically what is it? Is the ODL system that is being promoted. But then in this run, it's the IITs and all the other major central universities all will be part and parcel. So there is a huge future for that. In conclusion, the way forward will be ODL is transforming the educational landscape, promoting lifelong learning. It is essential to prioritize quality, accessibility, and relevance in the programs, courses that we offer. Stakeholders need to work together to develop a strong framework for open and distance learning. So we need to get together, in fact, and while working together, we can create an inclusive education system for future generations. Thank you very much.
As a budding state open university, Professor Kanjilal's profound observations were indeed a lesson for us, and we are very thankful, ma'am, for these observations on open education. Next, we move on to the lectures. It is my honor to introduce Professor Dr. N.B. Varghese, former Vice Chancellor of the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, New Delhi. With a remarkable career spanning decades, Professor Varghese has been instrumental in educational planning and policy research. It is my privilege to welcome Professor Varghese, former Vice Chancellor, to share his perspectives in over the 15 minutes that he will be talking to us.
Good afternoon, friends, respected fellow speakers on the dais, the chairperson, and also the dignified delegates of the dais. It's the afternoon, so keeping somebody awake is not an easy thing. Anyway, I have only 15 minutes. You cannot sleep within 15 minutes, so I am in an advantageous position. Friends, I am expected to talk about open education, present and the future. And I think I am very much aware of the fact that I am following Madam Professor Uma, who has given anything that you want to know on distance education. When I was requested that, sir, will you have any PowerPoint presentation? I said no. Because if I make a PowerPoint presentation, there are two dangers. One is that I am following Madam. Madam will be speaking everything that is about ODL. Then my transparencies will be just a repetition. Second, I avoid transparency in many places in my lectures because if you use transparency, you will know what I did not speak. If I don't have transparency, you will know only what I spoke. So I want to be in the latter category always while giving lectures and the other one. So coming to the topic, I think it's very important. What I'll try to do is the next 14 minutes or so that is allocated to me is try to capture the domain of the possibilities, or exploring the possibilities of ODL in the given context and in the future. As I was introduced as a policy and planner, one quality of a planner is that planner looks forward, unlike historians who looks backward. So the planner is always looking forward. A second quality of a planner is that nobody plans for a danger. Danger may take place, accidents may take place, but nobody plans for that. So from these 2 points of view, I feel that I will argue that ODL is safe, but how it is safe is an important dimension. Let me start with the 2 statements. One statement is that higher education used to be of the privilege of the West or the developed countries and of the privilege of the less developed countries. Higher education used to be the privilege of the Western world and of the privileged in the less developed countries. That I'll explain. What does it mean in terms of the changes in the contours and landscape of higher education that is taking place? The second statement that I'll make is that the universities will not exist as we know them. The universities, I'm not saying that the universities will not exist. The universities will not exist as we know them. I think my presentation will be between these 2 contours to see that how the changes will be taking place, or what are the changes that we can expect to take place in the context of the ODL. First, let me say that when you say that a system is changing, one of the dimensions of change is expansion. That is why my first statement becomes important. Expansion. So how higher education will expand and how ODL will expand and how distance learning will expand, how changes will take place and how this will influence the landscape of higher education globally and in India. That's the most important question that we want to have. Let me make 2-3 statements, bring little bit of numbers to it. And if you look at global higher education, one change that we find, which is also equally applicable in the context of India, is that 21st century saw a fast increase in the enrollments in higher education. I'm not talking about ODL alone. Increase. Roughly around 8 million students were added to the system every year globally. And it has become 7 million from the 2015-2016 onwards. So there is a decline, but it is very good change that you find. Where are these changes that you find? And what is the recent change that you find? There are 2 types of projections that are made. One projection states that in the 50% of the countries in the world, the population growth will be less than the replacement growth. And what do we mean by replacement growth? Replacement growth is 2.1. 2.1 is the replacement growth. It will be less than that. That means population will be initially growing at a decreasing rate and later it will be decreasing in many countries. India is safe from that. China is not that safe. This is one dimension of the change that we can talk about that. A second change that is very important, which is not adequately highlighted when we discuss about higher education and the changing landscape of higher education, is that in some of the countries, and that to developed countries, you find a decline in higher education. So for example, if you take United States, gross enrollment in higher education declined. If you go to Korea, enrollment in higher education declined. If you go to Japan, enrollment in higher education declined. And if you go to Russian Federation, enrollment in higher education declined. So there is a declining trend in higher education in many of the developed economies. This is a trend. So when we say that the system will expand, where will this expand? The system can expand only in countries like South Asia, in countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, Because North Africa and other places, you find that it's already expanded for two reasons. For example, if you take in South Asia, except countries like India, you find that the gross enrollment is 25% or less. That is the way that we find. In India, it is 28%. We are in a stage of massification. And if you go to Africa, the gross enrollment ratio is only 9%. Since the system here has not yet expanded, if the school system expands, there is a possibility of wide and massive expansion of higher education that can take place. So my first point that I am trying to labor to make is that higher education will expand, but it will not be a universal expansion. Unlike what we have seen in the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, where we found that higher education was universally and globally expanding, this will not take place. This expansion will be taking place confined to certain countries and mostly the less developed countries of Africa and South Asia. Then we have to see that what changes this will make when we talk about this change that is taking place or in the way in which the delivery systems are changing. So for example, if you come to India, till 21st century, it was a slow growing system with low gross enrollment ratios. By the turn of 21st century to the 21st century, we had only 8.3 million students in the colleges and universities, and we had gross enrollment ratio was only 8.4. That is 50 years history of higher education development in India. But in the next 20 years, what we find is that gross enrollment ratio has gone up to 26, 27. Now it is 28.3. And total enrollment has gone from 8.3 million to 43 million, 43.3 million. It's a dramatic change that has not happened anywhere, everywhere. And one of the reasons for this, it's not ODL, it's not distance education. One of the reasons for this is privatization and the growth of the private sector. And it may be true for some, and it may be very difficult for somebody to believe that today more than 70% of the enrollment and more than 75% of the institutions of higher education in India are in the private sector. If you come to Kerala, you will find that more than 78% of the enrollment is in the private sector. And if you analyze which are these private sector, it is not the aided sector. It is not the capitation fee sector, self-financing sector. And you find that 66 to 67% of the colleges in Kerala are also belonging to this category. And what is happening is that government colleges and government system is a shrinking system. And private sector and market mediated sector is an expanding sector. So therefore, the future of higher education will depend upon, that's my argument, how we negotiate with the market and how we interact with the market. That is some of the important dimensions of higher education that we need to look into. Why it is important? Because when you talk about the open learning systems, etc., what is the change that is taking place? If you see the data, even brought out by even in Kerala, what you find is that, of course, in India it is more true, globally also it is true, that is more than 70% of the students today have at least one course opted as online learning. That's a dramatic change that you find in the past 10 years. One can say that this is what is called as a COVID bump, COVID bump that has happened as a result of that. That is not the case. Even after COVID, what has happened is that many of the system has not gone back to 2019 levels. Some of them there was a decline, but it has not reached the levels of 2019, which means that our habits are getting changed and our attitude towards, there is something called TNE. There is no other alternative, TNA. There is no other alternative. 2020 and 21 was a period in higher education where we, or not only in higher education, in education in general, we said that TNA, there is no alternative but to move to online learning. Even if I don't believe it, even if I don't like it, that's the only way of communication. That was the only way that was available. So people moved. All the people who moved to that system did not move back. And then you find that the policy changes that you are talking about and the institutional arrangements. So, for example, Kerala is always ahead of any other state in India in terms of education, but not in online learning and not in, in the context of distance learning. I think our Open University is one of the, after a long period of time that we are starting, we are lagging behind many other institutions, you know. And Open University first came in 1982 in Andhra Pradesh, and 1985, the university that is represented by Madam, and there are so many, more than 15 open universities and 220 dual mode universities existing in India. But if you look at the enrollment in this point, that is what I am trying to say, that first, the possibilities of expansion are good in India. So ODL system in India has a good future. But if you look at it more closely, since the students are opting increasingly for at least one course in online one, what you find is that the courses may not increase. The number of students engaged in online courses will be increasing. That is the second change that you find. What does that mean in terms of the online courses? So, for example, the debate today is on how do you link education with employment. Unemployment levels are very high. Kerala has one of the highest unemployment levels, especially of the educated in the country. And we discuss about that. So there used to be a distinction between university education and training. Education and training. What used to be said is that education is what, knowledge has two dimensions. Knowledge as knowing and knowledge as operation. Knowledge as knowing is the responsibility of the universities. You produce knowledge and you transact knowledge. That is the responsibility of the universities. That is the primary responsibility of the universities. Your knowledge as operation are the type of things that you talk about when we discuss about polytechnics, when you discuss about ITIs and many other arrangements of training. So training is not the responsibility of the universities. This is one position that is taken. Training, if the universities are not producing trainable graduates, they should be held responsible. But the university should not be expected to produce job-specific trained graduates. That is not the responsibility. Because who are the teachers in the universities? We all are teachers. Who are the teachers in the universities? They have run away from soiling their hands or spoiling their future with soiling their hands. They cannot teach practical skills. And now why I am making this point is that there is an argument that skill universities have come up. There are, I think, 12 or 13 skill universities. I may be wrong in terms of the number, but not in terms of the trend. Skill universities have come up. I used to laugh at myself, when we discuss about skill universities. This does not go, this shows about operation. But I am not saying that universities has nothing to do with employment or skill formation, etc. But what is the framework in which we try to locate skill formation? That is the place I find that the future of ODL will be coming in a big way. Today what happens is that you go for a degree. Now, thanks to NEP, instead of 3 years, you had to spend 4 years to get a degree. Previously, it was only 3 years. So it's just a lot of unequal implication for the people who are coming from the poor families. They have to spend 1 more year. And especially if they are staying in the hostels and the fee levels are very high, it has a lot of implication. Anyway, that can be another debate. I'm not getting into that debate. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that when you have today 4-year degree and when you go to the labor market, you spend 4 years to get a degree, but the employer says that this is not what I want. So what should we do? Should we rearrange and reorganize the university activities to suit the corporate sector of India? This is one question. Then let the corporate sectors lead what is their contribution to universities in India? Do they contribute to public systems or private systems other than running their own private institutions to make profit? Capitation fee colleges or the private universities, etc. That is different. So I find a disconnect between these two orientation. Unfortunately, without knowing the market, the the differences or impact of the market interventions, we also sometimes unknowingly support these processes and procedures. So one point that I am saying is that tomorrow the graduate will be the graduates with 1 degree and several micro credentials. That's a point that I am coming to. Which means that today, what is the solution for this skilling, or de-skilling, or employment-oriented courses and other things? I don't think that it is going to start the skill universities. You know, that is why did these ready-made shirts come into existence? It is said that previously it used to take at least 1 week or 2 weeks to get a shirt stitched in Paris or in London. But by the time the shirt comes, the fashion changes. So the only way to circumvent the market's operation was to see that you try to see the ready-made dresses. If the corporate sector in India is expecting that the public universities and the private universities will be producing with the household expenditure, because you are spending money from your own household and your own pocket, and will be producing the skills that you need for you, and you make the profit. You don't pay for the cost. And if that is the case, it is impossible for this. So what the universities are trying to do, my argument is that instead of changing the curriculum of the universities in a big way, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that universities should not change curriculum, but they should not compete for skilling. They should not compete for training. They should compete for education. They should compete for academic relevance. They should compete for academic excellence rather than for training operations. What this micro-credentialing will do is okay, I had 2 more minutes, so I'll try to wind up. So what the micro-credentialing will do is that they will try to pick up the skills which are demanded in the market. That's a via media that will operationalize it. And it is this place you will find the ODLs, this is place you will find online learning, and it is this location that you will find online learning much important. Another area where online learning, there is a notion called planned obsolescence. That means, something become obsolete. And if you take the pen industry, we had fountain pen. And if you purchase a fountain pen for the next 10 years, you will not buy any pen. But if you buy a pen like this, every second year you will buy pen. So how will the markets and the profitability will be retained? It can be retained only if you demand. Because in a system that is expanding very high, if everybody is educated, everybody knows how to read and write, India has not reached that stage, then what will happen is that there will not be demand for further education. So what is the way that the demand for further education comes? The skills that you learned becomes obsolete immediately. Then you will look for opportunities to upskill. And this upskilling may be provided by the online courses. But one danger, especially after the COVID situation that we find with this scenario, is that in many a time, this upskilling or online courses are provided by the private agencies. LMS, learning management systems, if you see that, it is provided by the private agencies. In other words, previously the private sector ended through the formal channels. Now the private sector is entering higher education in a big way through the informal channels where regulatory mechanisms cannot operate, where regulatory mechanisms will fail before it starts, So this is the danger that we have. So what I am trying to say is that the expansion for ODL will be coming in countries like India for at least the next 1 decade or 1.5 decades from the expansion in terms of the enrollment. But in many other countries and including in India, a larger share of the expansion for online courses will come through the demand for upskilling. And this is the way that the arrangements will be taking place. So let me end my statement with the statement that I started. The universities will not exist the way we know them. If they do not change, they do not have a future. That is the link between education. and training. That is the link between education, person to person education, and online learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Verghese, for your thought-provoking lecture. Certainly, it was a critical evaluation of the relevance of open education in our times. Next, it is my privilege to introduce Sri George Abraham, the CEO of SCORE Foundation and a pioneer in the field of inclusive education and empowerment for the blind and visually impaired. In 2002, he founded the SCORE Foundation, which is and launched Project iWay, a transformative knowledge resource for the visually impaired. I humbly invite Sri George Abraham to articulate his views. Sir.
Yeah, when a blind person comes to the stage, there are two things he has to find out before he starts speaking. One is whether the sound system, the audio is okay. I guess it's okay. Can the people at the back hear me? Right. The second thing, I need to know whether there is an audience. How do I find that out? Wonderful, wonderful. So, great. Now, I am coming to a university to speak, and the two people who have spoken before me are both academicians, highly accomplished people, vice chancellors, PhDs, and I feel a little nervous and scared. And how much time do I have? 50? 15, okay. Right. I was just hoping that you'll say 10. Right. So, as the introduction went, I am not an academician, but an activist. And so the approach that an activist has to an academician might be different. So I began my career in advertising many years ago, and in 1988 happened to visit a school for the blind for the first time. And that's when I started realizing and recognizing the social outlook towards disability and blindness. The moment somebody is kind of pronounced blind, immediately the focus is on, oh, he cannot do this, she cannot do this, she cannot travel on her own. There's so many can't do's. And as a result, when you actually try to evaluate the future for that person, there are a lot of discounts. Because the person cannot do A, B, C, and D, therefore he will not become an IAS officer. Because he can't do X, Y, and Z, he cannot become a doctor. So the focus is on what the person cannot do. Parents, I spoke to many when I actually started realizing that there is a lack of appreciation of what a blind person actually can do. I realized that I need to talk to people to find out, and I just found across the board that the perception was when a person went blind in the house, when a child was born who was blind, immediately there was gloom, there was disappointment, and a feeling that there's no future. So I decided that my wife and I, we decided that we'll do some work with people who are blind, and as a result, I traveled around the country. And as I was introduced, I stumbled across Cricket for the Blind, and I had the privilege of promoting Cricket for the Blind across the country. That gave me the opportunity of interacting with different stakeholders. And what I realized was, I ran into a gentleman called Sadhan Gupta. Now, Sadhan Gupta, if you would believe, was a blind gentleman from birth. He was a barrister, and he happened to be a member of the CPIM and was elected to the parliament, Lok Sabha, in the 1950s. Totally blind gentleman elected from Calcutta to the parliament, Lok Sabha. Little later, I ran into a gentleman called David Blunkett. He was the Home Secretary in the government of Britain when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. I also ran into people who were professors, ran into people, there's a Kanchan Pamnani who's a lawyer in the Mumbai High Court. And that's when I realized that people who are blind are not useless. They are potentially part of the human resource of the country. Yeah, you can clap, yeah. And I realized that these people need to be invested in rather than just looked after. Invested in rather than looked after. Because they too can contribute, I should say, we too can contribute to the economy of this country. The Prime Minister of India says by 2047, Amrit Kal will be here and India will be the third largest economy. If India has to be the third largest economy, every section of our community needs to be taken on board. It cannot be just the Adanis and Ambanis and the Tatas who represent the Indian economy. Even simple people on the road or at the grassroots, whether he's today poor, whether he's socially in a different section of our society, whether he's economically weak, whether he's a woman, whether he's a disabled person, to my mind, all of them need to be part of this third largest economy venture. And to do that, we need to make sure that education reaches everybody. In the morning, there was one of the speakers, I think it was the Vice Chancellor, who said, knowledge liberates. I would say knowledge also empowers. And I've seen the difference in people when they actually go to school. I'll tell you a little story. There is in Varanasi, parts of near the place called Badoi, which is a center for carpets. So there was this gentleman who went for a wedding. There was a little boy of 9 years with him. He was blind, and a friend of him asked him, like, what is this boy doing? The parent said, of course he's blind, what can I do? And then further probing discovered that whether he has to go to the toilet, whether he has to clean himself, whether he has to wear clothes, whether he has to eat his food, he had to be spoon-fed, he had to be helped. The mother would put food in his mouth, and so on and so forth. So this lady said, why don't you actually educate him? So he said, how can the blind person be educated? Mind you, this gentleman was the owner of one of the carpet factories, educated man. So he said, okay, why don't you connect me to somebody? So he happened to come to my office on recommendation. We chatted for 5 minutes, and then I said, please put him into a boarding school, National Association of the Blind in Delhi. Put him there. And he said, how can you put him in a boarding school? He's blind and he's a little boy. He can't even go to the bathroom on his own. He said, train him and put him. Put a stone on your heart, put him. So they did that. And ladies and gentlemen, in a matter of 1 year, this little boy of 9, when he became 10, he was operating the computer. He was reading books. He was trained. So education empowers and liberates. Helps you to aspire, helps you to look forward, and eventually helps you to actually contribute to the community. Now, the opportunities for education in India for people who are blind are few and far between. There are blind schools. I believe in Kerala, there are 800 blind children who go to blind schools. There are about 55,000 blind children who go to mainstream schools in different parts of Kerala. Still, there are a very large population of blind children who don't have this opportunity. So, school is one. We are in the university stage. India is a country where the degree is what the first thing asks. Are you educated? How much have you studied? I thought when I finished my education in 1981, I was well educated because I had a master's degree. Today, are you educated? I feel shy to mention what my qualifications are because the people on either side of me will say, I'm a double doctorate or I'm wearing fancy degrees. So education is not only an empowering tool, it's also kind of puts you in a certain place in society. So, and universities across the country, there is reservation available today, but Again, the population is so huge. The blind population is in India is 5.44 according to the 5.44 million according to the 2011 census. And if we were to 13 years down the line, this number is likely to be larger. And whether there's enough resources available to educate these blind children, blind students, the answer is no. Now, I was sharing these ideas and coffee with Mr. Shatrak, who's going to be the next speaker, a few years ago, and we were talking about education and various things. And he said, we should check out how the ODL system goes with blind students. Are there blind students who do ODL education? Are there blind students who enjoy and have done well after ODL? So we decided to do a little research to understand the status of ODL. How do blind people know about it? Do blind people go for it? And so on. And then what are the challenges? What are the issues that arise? And is it satisfactory? And so on and so forth. Now, why did Mr. Shatrak have a conversation with me? Because I run a project called iWay, which actually started by addressing the problem. Blindness is not the real problem, it is the mindset. And for that, we used to disseminate information through radio programs that we made, a television serial that we made. All that was reaching the grassroots. And we started getting phone calls from people across the country. And these phone calls had to do with issues of education, issues of employment, issues of liberty, issues of discrimination, issues of rights, government pensions, and so on. And there are thousands of people who have called us up over the years. And we just felt that it might be a good idea to actually do a survey, a research project with the people who have called us up. We fixed on a number of 5,000, and we decided to call them up and ask them questions regarding their experience with ODL, Open Distance Learning. Now, so we had a professional agency that worked with us on this to do because our callers are spread across the country. So we spoke to over 5,000 blind and visually impaired people from 29 states across India. And it was done over a period of 6 weeks. And there was a questionnaire that was developed. People were trained to kind of deliver the questionnaire. We also had, and then what we realized was only 20% of these 5,000 odd population actually had gone to ODLs. And some of them said it was an enjoyable, fruitful exercise. Some people said that, we didn't like the interactions. Some people said the quality of learning material which was sent to us through audio cassettes, audio formats were not, some were good, but many of it was not up to the mark. And so there were various responses. The other thing was that people were using technology, and that's interesting. 60% of the people who actually did ODL actually used smartphones. You must be wondering how blind people might use a smartphone. There are screen reading softwares that blind people use to engage with digital devices. On the laptops, we use something called NVDA or JAWS. You can check out what NVDA stands for. And then you go to smartphones, you have the VoiceOver on iPhones, and you have the talkbacks on the Android phones. So these platforms were used to actually access content and engage with ODL. And then there were about 30% of them used laptops, and a further 10% used desktop computers, engaged with the learning material using screen readers. Zoom and other platforms were also available in certain cases for them to engage with the online lessons. And of course, I think YouTube is also being used extensively, which blind people use. But the point is, 80% of the people did not take up ODL. A large population did not take up ODL because they didn't know about it. There was another section of population, they knew about ODL, but they did not know where ODL programs were available. There was another group of people who said we couldn't afford it. Now, I don't know how expensive ODL is. How expensive is ODL? Any figures? Subsidized. But what's the figure finally? Highly subsidized. So what is the number? 5 rupees? 500 rupees? 5,000 rupees? Or free? Okay, 2,000 to 25,000. It sounds small for probably people sitting in this room, but many people would still struggle to raise that kind of money in our country. So, financial reasons were suggested, and there were also a section of people who said the families were not supportive in this regard. They believed that mainstream education, the traditional university education, needs to be gone through. So that was one. Then, yeah. Time moves very fast when you speak. It moves very slowly when you listen. Okay. So there's then people said that we needed accessible material. People said that we need access to technology. They also felt that the faculty and the people who run these online ODL programs needs to be adequately trained to be able to deal with people with disability. I did go to one of the ODL places. The director there was talking to me as if this was a charitable work that they were doing. Now that's the last thing. It is not charity, it is investment. You are investing in the population, citizens of India. So that is the mindset. So I think there's a certain amount of orientation, certain amount of training that needs to be done. And then, as Madam Kanjilal says, AI is a very critical element. And last week, I was on a television show where I was talking about how AI would play a role in inclusive education, because there is scope for personalized lessons. You can actually create very interesting lessons for each child based on the ability to receive information, the style of learning. You're able to personalize that. You're also able to, now we are talking about Kerala and Malayalam and English, but you are also able to use AI and instantly almost translate it into multiple languages. So you can broaden your bandwidth. You can be speaking to people across the country and move from 40,000 today to maybe a few lakhs in the next few years. So since time is run out, I just like to make 3 points here very quickly. One, I think ODL needs to seriously take on board the fact that people with disability, I would say especially people who are blind, because I'm part of that section, they need to be seriously considered as part of your learning population. I know that IGNOU is playing a very significant part. Professor Himlata and others are also driving change there. They are kind of trendsetters, but other universities, there were a few hundred numbers that Professor Verghese said. So all those universities, to my mind, should be encouraged and empowered to actually take on blind students as their learners. The second thing is AI has to be seriously considered so that the quality of engagement and the versatility of engagement is cast in on. And then I think the question is out, the jury is out on the fact, though Professor Kanjilal said that the quality is improving, yes, the quality probably is improving, but is it improving to this level that it could actually help students move on from being degree holders to being part of the job market? And I think skilling integrated into education, whatever Professor Verghese says, I disagree. I think there is need to bring in certain kinds of skills in the design of your programs, so that basic skills of language, skills of communication, skills of logic, skills of social interactions, skills of business, to my mind, can be entrepreneurship. These are things that can be included in the curriculum, brought in the style of engagement, so that we have an India in 2047 where there will be a substantial number of visually impaired professionals who would be holding Amrit Kaal and the third largest economy up. Thank you. And one last thing. If this university starts distance education in Malayalam in an accessible format, I will join in.
With great experts, with great experience, definitely these sessions do demand more time. Indeed, it is a rare opportunity for us to hear from their experiences. Thank you, Sri George Abraham, for your insightful perspective. Next, with immense joy, I introduce Dr. Bashir Ahmad Shadrak, a distinguished expert with nearly 4 decades of experience in open knowledge systems and rural informatics. His vast expertise in pro-poor information systems and his contributions. Okay, he'll take on the lead. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Professor Jagati, for inviting me to be here. Thank you, dear colleagues on the dais. Advocate Biju Mathi has done a great job in putting together this wonderful event. And my salutation to the chair, the registrar. I'm in between you and the next session, which is likely to start in 7 minutes, perhaps. So I want to only mention 4 things. First and the foremost is this morning, the Justice Chandru, the chairperson, the chief guest, mentioned that culture is a human right. We all want to recognize education as a human right. And this is something that oftentimes repeated, but if at all, if it's enshrined and lived through, it is only through the ODL system. Because a large number of population is not able to access education through conventional mode, and we see that ODL system caters to it. So, as a slogan, education is a human right, and also the commitments made by the governments, the Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 4, 8, and also 5, are to be realized only through the ODL system. The second point I wanted to make was that the out-of-school children globally are about 300 million. Although the statistics would say 262 million, there are 300 million people out of the school system, of which a good portion of 15% are in India. Again, the ODL system is the only solace for the out-of-school children to be mainstreamed into the society, particularly in the education field. Third point I wanted to make was the title of the session itself is around equity and access. So my previous speakers mentioned about equity from a point of view of access to education. If at all any equity were practiced right from day one and continues to be practiced, it's through the ODL system. Persons with disability, and the survey that Mr. George Abraham referred to indicated that 80% of the people that we surveyed preferred ODL system, although only 20% were only there in the system, which means every 4th person out of 5th person would want to be in the ODL system. So the only solace again is through the ODL system. The open universities only would enable us to reduce the equity factor, whether it is gender-based discrimination, or persons with disability, poverty and ethnicity. All these factors play a role, and ODL system caters to it. The last point I wanted to make was around quality, which is also the title of today's session. Quality would mean many things to many people. It could be a subjective term, but in the education domain, quality should result in reducing disparity. Reducing disparity in the experience that we provide. So we don't want to see a situation where a learner goes to a private system and finds a different education experience vis-a-vis the public system. So we want to raise the bar through the ODL system that the disparities are reduced. We want to also break the cycle of poverty. And although 75% of the newer institutions sanctioned to promote higher education in our country are private, of which a large number of these are also provided ODL licenses, to my mind, the public systems like this GOU are likely to cater to and break the cycle of poverty, because you are the only ones that are best placed to basically look into the last mile, people in the last mile. But also the quality should as much reduce the inequality, disparity, but also breaking the cycle of poverty should empower learners through economic opportunities. So this is extremely important because we want to ensure that our education results in productivity, and all those marginalized communities that come to us and go through our system are able to be productive enough as they walk out. So the economic opportunity angle is also something that we need to look at. Oftentimes quality is seen in the prism of the quality of material, quality of content and so on. We are superior in all those, no doubt. Our self-learning material are really good, but to my mind, quality needs to be looked into these prisms of reducing disparity, enhancing economic opportunities, breaking the cycle of poverty. The last paradigm is leaving the world as a better place for tomorrow's citizens, which means bringing in also the environmental consciousness into the thinking. So if we take care of these 4 areas, I think on top of our qualitative self-learning material, we would have done a service. So keeping this in mind, my organization, SEMCA, the Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia, is working with SGOU and the other open universities in our country in doing another 4 things. So let me quickly enlist these 4 things. First, we want to ensure that they all come together as a consortium. As a consortium to share and learn from each other, share their material, and put out their valuable resources, particularly learning content and human resources as a part of Open Education Resources Consortia. So this is something that we are encouraging them to do. And they themselves had declared this in their Ahmedabad declaration when all the vice chancellors of OUs met together in Ahmedabad in August 2023. So the first effort that we are undertaking is to unite all the 18 open universities, 17 state and 1 national open university, together as a consortium to help and share and learn from each other and share largely their resources as open education resources. Second thing that we are doing is to also bring them closer to the skilling ecosystem. Now, the gross enrollment ratio was mentioned. Today, we may be around 29% of GER at the tertiary level. And there is an ambition and target by the government to reach 50% by 2035. But to my mind, that's only a mere number. What would happen? Today, we have 43 million students in the higher education system. If it were to become 50% GER, we are talking about 100 million by 2035. But for me, 100 million is not the figure. For me, 1 billion is the figure. Because Professor Verghese earlier mentioned that in addition to the usual learners who come through the learning cycle from their schooling system to tertiary system, might be a part of that 100 million. But what we are talking about is 1 billion people who need to be reskilled, upskilled if they were to be relevant in the job market. Which means ODL system has an opportunity not only to contribute to the GER, but to the skilling mission in our country. So with this, keeping this in mind, we have brought them, all the OUs together to interface with the National Council for Vocational Education and Training to become awarding bodies of NCVET. IGNOU is already an awarding body, and within the next 6 months, we'll see all the 17 state open universities also become awarding bodies, which means you are not confined to only those traditional learners who would come into the system. You would be staring at all the working individuals, professionals who would come back to school to be trained, which means you have a greater opportunity to transform education landscape in your state, Kerala. The third thing that we are doing is keeping in mind that open universities like this, GOU, would need to now cater to 1 billion people in our country. They need to be really trained, they need to be geared up. So we have started a project called the Graduate Employability Project, which would enable each university like this, GOU, to understand where they stand with regard to graduate employability. So we'll come up with a scorecard which would rate each university in this graduate employability under the scorecard and make them aware that these are the things that they need to undertake, so that the outputs of the university is not just 50,000 certificates issued, but 50,000 graduates who come out and be in the employment landscape. And now SGOU would surely, if they embrace both NCVET and UGC as awarding bodies, they would be looking at not 50,000 students. To my mind, they will be looking at 500,000 students in a very short run. In the next 3 years, you are going to likely to actually scale up 10 times from 50,000 to 500,000. So that means you need to be capable of creating courses and be conscious towards that graduate employability, or the candidates that would come to your system for reskilling and upskilling to continue to be relevant in the job market. So that's the third intervention that we are undertaking in order for the open universities to be relevant. The final one, which Mr. George Abraham alluded to, is the phenomenon called generative AI. Whether Gen AI enable teachers, faculty members to create open education resources that they can put out in the public domain for one another to benefit from. Now we know that much has been spoken about AR, VR, extended reality objects and so on. But today we are staring an opportunity where generative AI through LLMs not only would translate, transcribe and transliterate and also produce audios and videos based on the prompts that we provide, but also would enlarge its knowledge base in order for you to create a lot of content. So we are beginning a small project with CBSE school teachers to figure out if we can use Gen AI to teach mathematics at standard 9 effectively through multimodal multimedia systems. Today, a 9th standard child would have only the textbook, would have the coaching center, would have the classroom where Blackboard is used. So unfortunately, the system continues to be 2D, but when it comes to Gen AI, we are trying to experiment whether we can come up with multimedia engaging content which could be created by CBSE's NCERT, school teachers who follow the NCERT syllabus to come out with learning material which could be personalized for the different learning styles of the students in the same classroom. And this applies as much to the school system, also to the higher education system. So within the next few years, we would see a paradigm where teachers in the loop of AI, what we call, or to be in the driver's seat rather than being sidelined. The edtech companies would produce a lot of content that they would directly market to students, but we want to see the future of Swayams and others would be in a multimodal, multimedia format, particularly generated through the help of generative AI, so that we can augment the existing content for the next generation learners who would be able to learn with engaging content. Thank you so much.
Now it's time for interaction. You can ask one or two questions. Eminent experts will respond to your questions. Due to time limit, I am limiting to 2 questions. Please.
No need to limit. Interaction will be fruitful.
Good evening, sir. Sir, my name is Sun Kumar. Thanks to the speakers. Despite the open education system, including the national college and the schools, India is lagging behind technologically and scientifically, still in the 21st century. Is there any scope, any development regarding this science and technology being adopted to the open education system? That's my question.
An audience can science and business. ഒരെണ്ണം കൂടി ഇല്ലേ മൈക്ക് വേറെ ഉണ്ട് വേറെ ഇല്ലേ ഇല്ലേ അവിടത്തേം കൂടി
I think it's an important question, but I feel that it's already integrated. They're not working as two separate entities. If I remember, I was a member of the Technology Policy Committee, and for the first time, Technology Policy Committee also had an education group associated with that, and I think it is not seen separately. Now, initially, what used to happen is that most of the educational development in the context of previously what used to happen is that most of the technological development in the context of education used to be led by engineers and technologists. The questions of educational relevant questions were less significant at that point of time. It was more technological oriented questions, technological expansion that is taking place, technological development that is taking place, how this can be used in education. But that trend has changed at least in the last 4 or 5 years, especially after the COVID, because the larger number of people have started relying on technology at least for one of their courses, at some points of time, and as a result of that, educational questions became important, and it was also recognized by the engineers that they are good engineers, but they cannot resolve the educational problems. So there is a combination or integration is taking place even at that level. Okay, previously the technological development used to move fast and forward, and this used to be adjusting the educational system or arrangements used to be adjusting to that. I'm not saying that such a thing is not happening now, but educational questions are not asked by the engineers or the technologists, but that change is taking place. So I don't think, sir, it is moving in two parallel streams. There may be better opportunities for integration, but this is already foreseen, and the way forward is integrating the two.
Do we have any other questions or observations?
Good afternoon all. My name is Bhaskaran. I am from Malappuram. I am a scholar and also a student. I am 73 years old and still I am a student. My question is, I am afraid in the scenario of AI, the distance education within the 5 or 10 years its need will disappear, because what we are intending to do through this distance education is doing AI, and anybody can access the educational or knowledge. Yeah, if he has a telephone or mobile or a computer, everything is possible through this AI system. And even in my case, I'm not fluent in the English, so what I'm doing to write any article or to present any question or something, I prepare a draft and give to the AI in the WhatsApp, and they are giving a result of something like this scholars, just like you or the foreigners, and perfect English. So I think the English teachers time will disappear within a few years. In that sense, yeah, I think there must be a modification in the distance education accommodating the AI. Otherwise, there will not be any life for the distance education after. Thank you.
I think the ODL system will evolve. Professor Verghese mentioned that the universities won't continue to be the way that we know them. This would transform. And the point that he made applies to both ODL and the face-to-face system as well. Generally for education. So what we are looking at is ODL evolving into something much more stronger, meatier, when technology is embedded and integrated into the 360-degree cycle of the education system, right from promotion to admission to conducting, transacting knowledge and giving the education experience, to assessment, to also issuance of degrees, to placing them in the marketplace. In all this, AI has a role to play, and we need to be able to integrate technology, also including the generative AI and generic general purpose AI technologies into our practices. So that's something inevitable in every walk of life, including education. So you are making a right point, but I don't think ODL will disappear. It will evolve into something really much more stronger.
In fact, the role of teachers are going to change. Technologies come and go, but as faculty members, we have to adopt and adapt ourselves. And of course, I agree with you, and concern is there among the faculty also if AI and robotics takes over all the activities of the education institutions. Are there teachers needed? I think they are needed. If you have to design something, from where the content comes, you will need teachers to prepare that. You're talking about giving prompts and content is coming. From where is it coming? Someone has developed, that's why it is coming. So this is something I think only change. I would mention in my presentation also, role of teachers. Teachers now will be more as a guide, as a supervisor, rather than facilitator, rather than just taking classroom teaching. So I think that motivation and all those things, that requirement is there. Teachers will be there. Though evaluation even can be, assessment can be done by the AI tools, but that's not good enough. If you check also, you will find that it's not. You have to actually design, the logic has to be built, it has to be done by the teachers only. So the relevance of ODL systems also in the system, it applies to Dr. Shardak mentioned, it applies to both the cases. Whether we talk about ODL case or, students may not go to schools or students may not go to universities. But that's not true. I think it will be there. We have to redefine our role. We have to re-engineer ourselves. That's very important.
Any more questions?
First and foremost, thank you for those wonderful presentations. I have been asked to be very brief, so I'll be very brief as such. There are two things that I would like to note as far as the future of open education is concerned. One is a takeoff from what Professor N.B. Varghese was stating as regards the economic side of the whole issue. I feel that the business models that open universities choose to pursue in future will have a great deal of implication on their sustenance. Because unless and until we, as open university functionaries, come at an optimal business model where, of course, the social motive is predominant, but at the same time, the sustainability element is taken care of, I feel distance education in many cases will have a tough time. And the second aspect that I would like to highlight here was there was a lot of discussion about generative AI, reliance on AI and all that. But I still feel that AI and generative AI is still in its infancy. To rely too much on that is like putting too much emphasis on this underdeveloped technology. Maybe it will take another 10-15 years for this technology to come in and play a big role in open and distance education. I'll just conclude by stating a simple case. If you search something on ChatGPT or any other generative AI and ask for a source, it will give you links. But if you check those links on the web, you will find that 99% of those links are just fake. So what I mean to say is that let us rely on the wisdom and abilities of our teachers and our content generators rather than relying too much on technology. Technology does come in, but maybe the stage is too early for something like generative AI to take over. Thank you.
I would like to make one comment on the business model. I think we did not discuss this about the financing dimensions of ODL. One advantage that ODL has over the other regular system is that ODL is self-financing arrangement. I cannot say fully, mostly, more self-financing than the other educational arrangement. One of the reasons for this is that the most expensive item in education, whether it is higher education or school education, is the faculty salary cost. It comes to around 95% of the current expenditure at the school level and roughly around 85% in the higher education level. That is the case. But what is happening in the ODL system is that the teacher cost is only 35 to 40. In some of the studies that we had done, we found that the teacher cost, salary cost is only 35 to 40%, not 85 or 90%. So there is a lot of saving. The second one, as the system expands, the per unit cost of the student declines substantially. As the operating cost is not substantial. Initial investment remains the same, whether 1,000 students are studying or 10,000 students are studying. So this is otherwise called as economies of scale in the technical term. And economies of scale are very much operational in the context of ODL more than what you find in the structured regular higher education system. So therefore, when you talk about the business model, unless you are talking about a business model for profit orientation, these are not business models of operations for profit making. And many private industry or agencies are intervening in education and ODL more with the profit orientation rather than education orientation. So the question is that what business or which business model you want? You want a business model with the education orientation or a business model with the profit orientation? Then the business models will be very different. That's why I was talking about most of the learning management systems which came and many of the platforms that are coming. A new term that is coming is platformization of higher education. It's a new term that is coming, and you find that this is also one of the important dimensions of open learning systems. So
Thank you, everyone. Since we were speaking on AI and writing our assignments on AI, I would like to take this opportunity to publish a unique book by our learner, a learner of Sri Narayana Guru Open University. He has written a novel completely based on with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Yes, for the first time, an Indian author has ventured to write an English novel titled The Doctor's Dilemma, AI Meets Human, with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Indeed, it is a new frontier in collaborative storytelling. I invite Professor Uma Kanjilal to publish the book, and to receive the book, I invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Jagdiraj Sir. Sri Anup. Congratulations, Sri Anup. Sri Anup Babu would like to offer all our esteemed guests a copy of this book free of cost. Thank you all. And now, as a token of our appreciation and gratitude and respect, we would like to present mementos to our esteemed guests. First, I would like to call upon our syndicate member, Dr. Udayagala Ma'am, to kindly present the memento to Professor Uma Kanjilal, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of IGNOU. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing us with your presence today. Next, I would like to call upon Dr. Rennie Sebastian, our respected syndicate member, to present the memento to Professor N.V. Burgess, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to call our syndicate member, Dr. Pasilithil, sir, to hand over the memento of appreciation to Sri George Abraham. Thank you very much, sir. And now I would like to request Srimati Sharanya, our finance officer, to hand over the token of appreciation to Dr. Bashir Ahmad Shadrak. Thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. As we approach the conclusion of this seminar, it is time to express our gratitude to all those who have contributed to its success. I invite our Head of School of Languages, Dr. Vincent Neto, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Gratitude matters. Thankfulness is all. Honorable Chair, Dr. Gracious Day, the Pro-Vice Chancellor in charge, the distinguished guest of the day, Dr. Uma Kanjilal, Honorable Vice Chancellor, the dignitaries on the stage, off the stage, dear teachers and participants. The session was very meaningful. We had an eye-enlightening session on open education, the present and the future. Dr. Gracious, the chair, set the ball roll, and he had spoken on how we would prove for a hybrid mood, which would prove a resilience in crisis. And the open education is here to stay, to empower and employ or provide enlightenment for the society at large. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your profound and very erudite reflections on the topic. Professor Uma Kanjilal, Honorable Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, in her very precise but profound presentation, has spoken on the several dimensions of open education. She spoke about Education 5.0, changing eduscape, the institutionalization or the deinstitutionalization of education, how technology, how teachers become an absentia and they would be substituted for motivators, NEP 24 section 3, how MOOCs, mobility, APAR, and other so many things which could be a thought for a whole day. And I'm really privileged to extend a very hearty thanks to Professor Uma Kanjilal for her profound and precise observations. And next to Professor N.V. Varghese, who made a very critical deliberations on what you call the uneven landscape of higher education. There is an expansion, but how would you turn uneven and how market would decide on the educational system? Rather, we have to think on the topic, and thank you very much, sir. And we are very thankful for your insight on that. And we have also the next speaker, Shri George Abraham, who has been very inspiring. He spoke from his heart, and his was a message for us to redraw our line of limitations. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your inspiring words. And next to Dr. Bashir Ahmed Sadrat, who, with all his expertise, could just rope in several arguments which would show how open education would have a stay, would have a high future, because there are 3 million where 15% are Indians to be educated. And he has also offered how his organization would work in collaboration, in consortium with the open universities. And on behalf of the university, we extend or we appreciate your presentations. And now, I also thank Dr. Sunitha AP, the Registrar of the University, for welcoming the gathering, and all other participants here for sparing your time. And we hope that this session, Open Education, the present and the future, will hold on to you. And Srinarayana Guru Open University is here to stay with a brighter future and greater prospects. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Seminar is formally concluded. Thank you, everyone.